Good evening. So our topic is about nature and importance of lesson planning. Pwede nyo din itong i-visit sa online site. Ang author natin, Carol Gerland. So what is lesson plan? Bago natin simulan yung lesson, alam ko na you're already familiar with the lesson planning, but I don't know if you have a mastery dealing and making a lesson plan. So this topic will tackle different aspect. Ano ba yung good planners? Ano ba yung magiging outcomes if a teacher has a lesson plan? Balikan ko yung tanong, what is a lesson plan? Sabi dito sa screen natin, basahin natin. Yan, may mga figure na lumabas. As you can see, different pictures tell us that the specific path given nakalagay dyan dun sa figure number 1, mayroong arrow kung saan siya pupunta at dadaan. Dun sa basketball court or dun sa half court, meron ding sequence or parang step kung saan siya magsisimula at saan siya matatapos. Another picture tells the specific way kung saan ang start and ending. It also indicated the strategy, operation, and tactics. Makikita natin, kapag may strategy ka, madaling magpo-process during the operation, those operation or yung mga ginagawa ninyo bilang isang teacher will become your tactics, parang techniques in other term. Next. A lesson plan is a model of organized learning events within a set period of time or session. O dito nga nakalagay na yung lesson planning natin is some sort of organized learning events or sequence kung saan mayroon lang tayong specific time na naka-allotted doon sa isang lesson. Another one, it is a projection of real lesson filed with concrete processes, assignment, and learning tools. Bakit sinabi natin na compilation of a concrete processes? Kasi lesson planning, dito natin makikita kung paano tayo magkakaroon ng konkretong pamamaraan kung paano isasagawa ang pagtuturo natin at pagta-transfer or pagpapacilitate ng learning. And also included assignments. Bakit kaya mahalaga yung assignments? 'Di ba? To connect to another lesson or to new lesson, nagbibigay si teacher ng assignment. But the DepEd emphasize some curricula or what we call executive order na nagsasabi na bawal magbigay ng assignment to have a free time and full time with their families yung estudyante natin. But more specifically, yun ay mayroon lang set date kung kailan pwede magbigay si teacher ng assignment to connect your current topic to new topic. Kumbaga, paano natin i-connect siya sa panibagong lesson na isasagawa ni teacher on the next period or session. And also learning tools. Included ang learning tools natin kapag gumawa tayo ng lesson plan, what will be the tools that are being used by the teacher during the teaching learning process. Diba? Sabi nga natin, a concrete process. Kung ikaw ay teacher at mayroon kang concrete example, like for example, binigay mo yung picture sa estudyante mo, pwede na natin siyang tawagin na concrete example kasi hindi mag-i-imagine sa students na ay ganito pala ang isang hitsura ng isang apple. But a concrete tools and learning tools for them to learn effectively. Next, it is a blueprint on which to construct a learning process made up of clearly stated goals and objectives. There is always an objective in every lessons. Kasi, tanongin natin yung sarili natin. Kapag nagturo tayo, lagi tayong nagbibigay ng objective. Ano ba ang kadahilan natin para ituro ito sa kanila? Ano ba yung gusto nating malaman ng bata at matutunan nila galing dun sa ating lesson? So there is a clearly stated goals and objectives. It also a tool that moves from theory to practice. 'Di ba? Pansinan natin in science subject, there is always a theory introduced by different philosophers and scientists. Kapag theory lang siya, nandun niya stated yung practice, what we call yung kanilang processes, pero without practice, hindi siya magiging effective through experience of the students. Carrying out the methodological approach based on the latest research. Kapag nag-introduce tayo ng lesson at pinag-aralan na ito dati, ikino-compare natin siya doon sa pinakang latest, kung paano yung different nila at kung alin yung mas madaling matutunan ng mga estudyante. So next. Ayan. Pagmasdan natin and let us observe and compare the students. On the first, o dun sa may group ng estudyante or pupils natin, organize siya kasi there is a teacher who facilitated the learning. While the other side on the lower part, parang makikita natin na there is something wrong without the supervision of a teacher. But nowadays, as we can see and as we can observe and experience, most of the students are busy dealing with different what we call kanilang mga interest, like for example gadgets. Ang example natin yung gadget, kapag minsan si teacher nandun na sa loob ng klase pero yung mga estudyante may kanya-kanyang mundo. 'Di ba? Na-experience natin 'yan in the past, in the previous year na mayroon pa tayong face to face. So what is the importance of having a teacher and lesson plan kapag tayo ay mayroon ng estudyante? O kung walang lesson plan si teacher, maaring hindi organize yung kanyang klase kasi pag nag-introduce siya ng isang topic, wala nang pupuntahan, kaya nagkaganyan yung mga estudyante. While the other teacher tells and emphasizes that a teacher always guide the students to make a new learning experience. Tama? Next. Why is lesson planning is important? The key to good teaching, purposeful class management, and achievement of sustained educational process or progress lies in effective preparation and planning, according to BAT 2008. Tama. A lesson planning is one of the most and effective way to manage and to have a good achievement doon sa educational progress of our students. Effective preparation of your lesson to your students, have a good plan to introduce them, expect the good result and the good learning na matututunan ng mga estudyante. Effective lesson planning is essential for successful experiences in both teaching and learning process. So, hindi lang isa yung nagbe-benefit. Pwedeng mag-benefit din ang teachers from the students. Kasi kung noon spoon feeding si teacher, ngayon tayo ay nakapokus kanino? Kay students. Because we are facilitating only the learning, because the learning is given na dun sa mga estudyante natin based on the K-12 program curriculum as guided by the Department of Education. Lalong-lalo na sa part natin kasi ang tuturuan natin is yung nasa mga level pa lang ng nagsisimula. So, there is stages in lesson planning. Ano yung mga stages natin in lesson planning? Ayan. You should have a lesson planner. Kapag ang paggagawa natin ng isang plano, dapat laging kinukonsider natin yung mga changes na pwedeng mangyari along the way or along the process of teaching learning. The first stage is preparation. In preparation, tatanungin tayo who is to be taught. So by knowing the learners, katulad nung sasabi natin sa isang mga principles natin na we should know our learners so the desired outcome can be determined and the teacher can identify the purpose of the lesson. So, bakit ba ini-introduce natin yung ganitong lesson sa ating estudyante? Bakit ba ganito yung approach natin when we discuss the lesson in front of our learners? Kasi, you know better than other people to your learners. Alam mo kung saan ka magsisimula, kung saan mo sila isi-set up para hindi sila mahirapan, in a long run, hindi sila maliligaw at mahuhuli dun sa lesson na ini-introduce mo sa kanila. An effective activity or lesson plan begins with a specific objective. Remember that, class. Lahat ng lesson natin or lesson plan na gagawin ninyo ay mayroon dapat specific objective. At mamaya itatakal natin ano ba yung mga objective na mas effective and efficient to the level of the learners. Yan, considering the taxonomy or Bloom's taxonomy objectives. Naka-indicate dito yung level and the process considering the verbs na pwede nating gawing objective or specific objective when we introduce specific lesson to our dear students. Sabi dito, Bloom's taxonomy provides good example of appropriate action words to use in learning objective. With this learning, or the learning objective becomes student-focused and outcome-oriented. Diba sa K-12, kinukonsider natin ang learning or learners' differences or individual differences, which is the multiple intelligences. So, pinoprovide natin yung learning by doing of the students. Kapag na-experience nila, we do believe that this learning is effective. The next stage is implementation. How do you teach the students? In what way? As a teacher, paano ka ba magsisimulang magturo sa iyong estudyante? So, there is a methods or strategy employed. Kaya pinag-aaralan natin na what are the different methods and strategies of teaching. Kasi this is very important kung papaano tayo magtuturo sa mga estudyante. Learning activities and methodological approach. Different approach must implement during the teaching learning process. Kasi paano natin ma-assess yung estudyante natin kung hindi natin alam kung anong approach yung pwede natin gamitin? So you should be familiar in learning activities and giving methodological approach to our dear students. Ayan, tingnan natin. Dun sa example, makikita natin na yung mga estudyante through assessing, doon nakikita nila ano ba yung nandito sa globe na ito, tinitingnan nila. And then after that, anong approach yung ginawa ni teacher? After the children experience to what we call, anong ginagawa ba nila dyan sa picture na number 1? 'Di ba? Ina-assess nila ano ba yung mga part ng globe. And then after that, merong assessment na nangyayari between the teacher and the students para ma-assess kung talagang yun ba yung tamang na-locate nila, for example, yung specific area or place on that specific globe. Tama? So, kailangan pa din pala, sir, yung supervision ni teacher. Tama, kasi guide tayo. Guide tayo para matuto lalo sila at ma-assess natin yung learning na nakuha nila. So, next, material and technology application. This is very important stage kasi considering or adopting the technology, nakakakuha tayo ng effective learning. Kasi natutulungan niya tayo to assess, like for example, hindi man tayo nakapunta in a specific place, pero through the use of technology, we can imagine and we can see the place or specific place, anong meron doon, ano ba yung nakapwesto doon, and etc. So the next stage is reflection. Kayo ba? Nagre-reflect ba kayo kung paano kayo natututo? Although we have a limited time to discuss like this, na-assess ba natin or nagre-reflect ba tayo? Ano ba yung mga binibigay ni sir ng mga modules? Bakit napakahaba ng ibang modules or what we call, bakit kailangan namin itong pag-aralan? Bakit hindi sinort ni sir na ito na lang, topic by topic, ito lang yung himalaga? Katulad ng nire-request ninyo. Kasi, dapat in every situation, there is always a reflection kung paano natin i-assess yung sarili natin, kung napag-aralan ba natin, magiging effective ba tayo. Katulad dito, is my lesson plan effective? Tatanungin ko din yung sarili ko kung paano ko ini-implement yung lesson ko sa inyo. Kung ganito bang discussion, mabibilisan kayo, maintindihan nyo ba na yung mga sinasabi ni sir is importante bilang isang teacher in the future? Ma-adapt ko ba yung mga best practices na pwede naming i-apply when we are in the field of teaching? So, dun pa lang nakikita ko na by introducing this lesson, you will realize that those stages, methodologies, and techniques of teachers can be applied in the future kung talagang pag-i-reflect natin siya, magre-retain siya sa utak natin. The teacher evaluates the strength and the weaknesses. Bakit kailangan yung weakness? Kasi 'di ba sabi natin, kapag mahina ka, pag na-target mo kung saan ka mahina, dun ka magpo-focus para makuha mo na yung weakness mo maging strength mo na in the future. Na sa susunod, naging mahina ka sa ganitong larangan or aspeto, sa susunod hindi na. Kaya the teacher evaluates the strength and the weakness of the lesson plan before implementing it and after it has been delivered. Katulad ko in my experience, nung nag-aaral pa lang ako katulad ninyo, hindi ako confident na magsalita sa unahan as what we call the speaker or teacher in front of the different minds or young minds in front of me. Katulad ko, isa ako, samantalang madami sila. So, nagpa-practice ako doon sa mga ka-boardmate ko na ganito. And then, na-evaluate ko na, ay ganito pala dapat yung strategy na dapat kong gawin. So, before demo teaching happen, na-practice ko na siya and na-improves ko na kung saan ako mahinang part para pagdating ng demo teaching final, medyo okay na. So, you should always evaluate the performance before and after the lesson proper. Next. Yan, ipinapakita naman dito sa slides na ito yung structure ng lesson plan or the types of lesson plan, The types of the lesson plan. Sabi dito, there are different ways to make a lesson plan. Madaming ways. Pero we should always consider the good ways to make or to make a lesson plan. But all effective lesson plans have a structure. So kapag epektibo yung gusto natin na lesson, dapat yung lesson plan natin is or have a structure. At ano-ano yun? Nandito. O, di ba nakalagay dito on the first structure, date, subject, area, topic, grade level. You should always have Kailan ba ninyo yan gagawin? Ano yung subject area? Anong grade level yung tuturuan mo? And then, nandun yun sa description and introduction. The next structure is goals and objectives. Sabi natin kanina, you should be specific doon sa gagawin natin na lesson. Sabi dito, may include academic and culturally relevant content standard, adaptation for diverse population. We always consider knowing the student's capability. Pinakang mahalaga talaga, lagi kong inuulit-ulit sa inyo na dapat alam natin yung or kilala natin ang estudyante natin. Paano sir? Ang dami nila. So you should be flexible enough dealing and knowing the strength and the weaknesses of your students para mabigay din natin yung the best learning sa kanila. Next is the materials and tools. Ano ba yung best materials na pwedeng gamitin natin or what we call learning materials na magiging effective kapag inintroduce mo yung topic mo? Ayan, pakibasa. Instructional resources such as text, visual, handouts, etc. or educational technology. As 21st century educators, we consider always the use of technology. Kaya nga may mga ganito ng video presentation, PowerPoint presentation. Kung noon puro lahat sulat, pero today we have a combination of traditional and modern technology. Next is the procedure. Paano ba yung step by step natin na gagawin para maituro si lesson? Nakalagay dito the content presentation and the activities. Lahat may activities. From the preliminary, may activities ka na binigay. O let's say na nandito na tayo sa lesson plan natin. Di ba unang-unang ginagawa, binibigay natin ano ba yung objective natin dun sa lesson para sila matuto, ano ba yung kailangan nilang matutunan, and then after that may mga activities na sunod-sunod na naka-sequence siya. Next is the important part, evaluation. Sabi dito, reflection and assessment from the form of test, quizzes, essay, and etc. So dito, pinakamalagang part din yung evaluation. Kasi dito natin makikita kung efektibo ba yung ginawa nating na transfer of learning or facilitating learning to the students. So, evaluation is the most important part kung paano natin i-revise kung for yung performance ng estudyante. Or maybe, mag-isip tayo, baka kaya for yung performance ng estudyante natin ay for din yung performance ni teacher. Diba? That will reflect to the performance both side. Next. Ito yung types. We have detailed lesson plan. Alam ko na familiar na kayo. Sa detailed lesson plan has 5 parts. Objective, subject matter, procedure, evaluation, and assessment. Tandaan mo lang yung part. May share ako sa inyo mamaya bago ko magbigay ng example. Sabi dun sa lesson plan, everything is written down like a script of a play. Parang pag may play, ano ba yung sasabihin ni Diego? Ano ba yung sasabihin ni Pedro? So, naka-scripted siya lahat kahit yung tuldok. Pag sinabing tuldok na, period, tapos. So, naka-indicate siya sa detailed lesson plan. It contains what the teacher does and says and what the students are expected to say and do. Diba? Ano ba yung ginagawa ni teacher? Ano yung sasabihin ni teacher? Ano yung expect ni teacher na sasabihin ng estudyante? Ito na yung sabi ko, i-share ko sa inyo. Actually, this story has been shared by my former professor at PNU. She said that ang buhay daw natin parang lesson plan. Bakit? Kasi meron tayong objective sa buhay. Ano yung gusto mong marating? And that is your subject matter. Like for example, ang objective mo sa buhay ay maging teacher ka. So, paano mo gagawin yun? That is the procedure. Mag-aaral ako ng mabuti hanggang makarating ako ng kolehiyo at makatapos ako ng teacher at makapag-board exam. And then, you will evaluate kung yung bagang mga pinag-aralan mo na yun ay sapat na. Nakapag-exam ka na, nag-evaluate ka na at naka-form ka na ng lahat ng papel na kailangan mo para sa gagawin mong pag-apply bilang isang ganap na teacher. So, you evaluate those performances or the previous performances from objective, subject matter, procedure, and then evaluation. And your assignment will be, to apply at the Department of Education to become a teacher. So, parang ganun lang din daw yung lesson plan. Next type is semi-detailed lesson plan. Dito naman sa semi-detailed lesson plan has all the components of detailed plan but does not include a complete description of pupil's activity. Kung minsan yung teacher's activity lang ang naka-indicate tapos nakalagay like for example sa prayer, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, dun sa teacher sa student's activity nakalagay Amen. So hindi na detailed yung pagsasabi pa ng mga prayers unlike dun sa detailed natin. It also contains the important subject matter and description of teaching learning activities according to Beltran 1992. Makikita natin kahit maliit, nandyan yung example sa gilid. Brief lesson plan. Itong type ng lesson plan na ito is an only guide statement of brief explanation of the activities to be performed in each part provided. Katulad ng nasabi ko kanina, para lang siyang ang tawag dito, cue cards. Kasi dun lang nakalagay yung brief explanation natin ng plan natin sa lesson natin. Next is understanding by design. Itong understanding by design para nabaligtad. Makukuha natin yung gusto nating ipatuto doon kapag na-introduce na natin yung lesson and activities natin. Sabi dito, the UBD by J. McTagg described the UBD as framework for curriculum planning, assessment by design, and ultimately for teacher with the goal of understanding and transfer. Katulad bagay dyan, backward design. You will identify the desired result. Ano ba yung dapat na-expect mo maging result? And then, you will determine the acceptable evidence. Kapag na-introduce mo na yun at naging ganito yung resulta, saka ka lang magpa-plan ng learning experiences and introduction. Yeah, di ba? Parang yung sequence niya is balintad lang. So, according to Grant Wiggins, emphasizes that the UBD is not a philosophy and not an approach to teaching but a planning framework. So malinaw yun it is a planning framework only. Yan. There are 3 stages in UBD: described result, assessment, evidence, and the learning plan. So siguro pag-aaralan din natin yan in the next session kung paano gumawa, pahapyawan natin para pag na-encounter ninyo na ganito yung type of the lesson plan, you will become familiar with it. And the part of conclusion. In this stage, lesson planning is integral in the teaching learning process. It encourages research. Teachers have foresight to think deeply about the lesson, maximize learning opportunities. Katulad kapag nag-introduce na tayo ng lesson, lagi nating may conclusion, sapat na ba yung lesson ko to become effective? Epektibo na ba yung lesson ko to transfer the learning, which is the objective attainable? Kaya di ba pag naggagawa tayo ng objective, kino-consider natin yung smart or smarter. Alam nyo na ba yung meaning ng smart and smarter? You should be specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound, and di ba? Mayroon tayong dinagdag na ER. And LPs don't always have to be detailed. Tama naman nga. Hindi naman kailangan laging detalyado yung lesson plan natin. because it will serve as a guide. Katulad nga ng shinare ko sa ibang estudyante na kapag ang lesson plan ay kinantulad mo sa isang map dun sa ways, hindi na nakadetalyado kung saan ka liliko, pero mayroon lang path kung saan ka eksaktong dadaan para hindi ka maligaw. No, hindi na siya detailed, pero mayroon, pag-kliko mo sa ganito, nakaliko ka na agad, makikita mo na. And that is a part of a lesson plan. Pwedeng hindi siya detalyado. Planning can be integral process. Considering the integral process, kapag nagpaplano kaya gumagawa ka ng isang lesson, pwede siyang nagpo-proseso internal. Dun ka lang nakapokus kung saan ka pwedeng maging flexible kapag naka-encounter ka ng mga changes kapag nagtuturo ka na. A good lesson plan is apparent, serve as a guide, flexible, clear and understandable, well-documented, and it becomes a historic document of a class which can aid in performance evaluation, students assessment, and curriculum development. Napakahalaga, pagpupukusan ko to na ipaliwanag sa inyo. Kasi a good lesson plan is always apparent. Bakit? Kasi pwede natin siyang tingnan kung alin pa yung i-improve natin. Kung alin pa yung pwedeng isama natin dun sa lesson natin. Because those lesson plan will serve as a guide kung doon sapat na ba siya sa level ng estudyante natin. Kasi di ba nakakategorize yung estudyante natin from SL, FL, may slow learners tayo or low achiever, sabi natin, and may fast learner tayo na mabilis matuto. So magsiserve siya ng guide natin kung alin yung gagawin natin at papasok din yung flexibility ng isang teacher kung paano niya i-adjust from pababa o pataas yung level nung isang lesson natin. It clearly understandable. Di ba? Pag naging flexible ka dealing with those changes, it should be clear and understandable kung bakit mo binago at kung bakit siya pinataas ang level. Kasi sabi ko, alam mo kung ano yung learners mo, di ba? Because you know already who your learners are. And it should be well documented. Bakit? Kasi pag may evidence ka, like for example, through evaluation, nagbigay ka ng quiz, test, at maganda yung result, that is a it is a sort of evidence na magpapatunay na maganda yung kinalabasan ng lesson. And that would be all. Keep calm and pretend it's on the lesson plan.